Perhaps the best one that you might be less well known for or known for is the audio CD you created for this book, Into the Red, and of course Passion for Speed, which are your two books that describe many of the cars in your collection. These of course provide the soundtracks to the machines. Whose idea was it to record the cars, and how difficult was it to do that?
I think it was, I won't say an afterthought, because we did do it when we started the track tests of the cars, but it certainly, when we originally pitched the book to publishers and so on, hadn't really thought about it. But I think Mark and I were just talking one day about what we could do to maybe add yet more to the book, and the idea came up of doing the recording. And I mean, I am familiar with some of the records that have been made in the past. I think Stanley Schofield did a series of, which included the V16 BRM. But the one thing that we thought we could do that they couldn't was do in-car recording. Because now there's so much miniaturization. 10 years ago, miniaturization was available, whereas in the old days they'd have had to have big reel-to-reels. Yeah. That wouldn't have been possible. No. So it was the biggest problem again with the technical problem was, of course, interference from magnetos, things like that, which was a nightmare. I mean, the number of times you'd go out and come back and it'd be across louder than any engine noise.
And Mark Hales, of course, made the point when driving the BRM that it would only rev to so far and then it would just stop. Which must have been interesting, though. It was actually faithfully recorded on the CD as doing that, which is fascinating. Tell me, we touched on to your father. I mean, he was a filmmaker, as you say, and a racer, but very famous for the Shell motorsport films, and probably had quite a role in ensuring that a lot of that pre-war footage was kept and saved.
Yeah, absolutely, because so much of it was on nitrate film, which tends to, burst into flame, which makes it rather unpopular. And so a lot of that was done some time ago now. I just think if there's any of that film around still, it probably is almost unsavable now. But yeah, they do. I think that was one of the things people should really be grateful to Shell for, because they did save an awful lot of this extraordinary footage of these cars working. And the great thing was, I think my dad and the other people who worked on this were able to work out sometimes what these races were and who the cars and drivers were, because so often the cans of film would arrive but they'd actually be incorrectly labelled. Oh. So you couldn't take it for granted that what it said on the tin was what was in the tin.
Okay. What does this Bentley say to you? Clearly it says a lot. I mean, it's a very treasured item for you.
Yeah, because it's my childhood, and that was, for me, going motor racing. It was being tucked in the back of the Bentley and heading off for Silverstone, because in those days trailers were, I mean, no one did, well, apart from a few of the single-seaters, people didn't use trailers. You drove to Silverstone, took all the running gear off, waited till the end of the race of the day, and then drove home again.
Was that a car that was handed down through the family, or was that one that you had to find?
No, my dad, he bought it, I think, just post-war. Right. And when he died, I took it on.
Lovely. A lot of interviewers seem to ask you to cite a favourite car, and I know you find that difficult. I guess perhaps the question should be, what's the most important car to you?
I think important, favourite, whatever. It's always difficult, because there's probably 3 or 4 cars that are particularly special. And I mean, I tend to start with the pre-war Aston Martin LM21, which was a team car, because that was the car I started racing in. Okay. And that was in 1973, something like that. And I still race it today. I raced it at Goodwood. It was at the revival last year, I think it was, the year before. And something like that is very much sort of, I'd say, part of the family, because my wife's driven it and my 2 daughters have driven it. Hopefully the boys will drive it eventually. So that's, you know, that's special. But then there's things like the Birdcage Maserati, because I had one of the best races ever in that as a support race for the British Grand Prix, and won the race on the last corner of the last lap. You don't very often get that, unless you're Sterling Moss, of course.
Well,
you know, sadly I'm not. And then, of course, the GTO always gets brought up because, I mean, the reason why it's such an important car is because it's such a good car, and it does all these things really well. And it's a racing car. It raced at Le Mans, got a podium finish in '62. It's a rally car, and it's a really beautiful piece of kit. And the fact that it's so incredibly valuable makes me look clever. That's worth quite a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, you clearly enjoy Ferrari cars, and out of interest, exactly how many have you had and how many do you have at the moment?
How many I've had, I've no idea, because they have come and gone. And
yes.
I quite like that thing of occasionally sort of big intake of breath and unload a car, or even, as I did at one time, I unloaded 3 road cars and bought the T3, the Gilles Villeneuve Formula 1 car. And in a way, Ferraris are sort of tradable. I rather like that thing, that you can sort of go, well, I'll give you 1512 for a 308 or whatever. Yeah. So I've no idea. I mean, I've had all sorts of road cars. I've not sold many race Ferraris. You tend to get more of an affection for the race cars than the road cars. But at the moment I've got 8, I think. I know I've got 8.
Yeah. From what I understand, you do enjoy driving your cars, and they're certainly not hanger queens. Surely though, some must be so valuable that you must be very careful when you pick your moments. I mean, the GTO is a good example, as good an example as ever. The Gilles Villeneuve car is another, I guess. I
think the GTO is the best example. I call upon, my first witness would be Martin Brundle, who, when we were at the Goodwood Revival a few months ago, he came up to me quite sensibly and said, "Now, Nick, tell me, how do you want me to play this?" Because the year before he'd driven it, he'd been a bit nervous about being crowded a bit, and he wanted to know how hard he should push. And I turned to him and I said, "Martin, the one thing I don't want is I don't want it coming back looking like that." And I pointed at the car and it was absolutely shiny.
Yes.
That's, you know, it should come back looking like it's done a race. I'm really in favour of, I was going to say I'm really in favour of running the cars as well as you can, because to some extent you want to do them justice. You want them to be seen. If you're going to take them on the track, you might as well see them running properly.
Yes.
And I don't want to see it crawling around crawling around. I want to see it with a bit of sideways on it. But the other thing to remember that I think people forget is that the value of these cars is in their history, is in what they are. And so consequently, a bit of battle damage actually isn't, it's not like you knock a corner and it's going to cost you £1 million to put it back right. It's just a corner that needs to be put back again. So I think that perhaps occasionally confuses people, that they think these incredibly valuable cars have a sort of cost per square inch.
Yes. Well, the cost per square inch of that car would be astronomical now.
Well, value per square inch, but not cost to repair.
Yeah.